good afternoon, and welcome to Saturday Sesh. My name is Trey Reckling. I'm the founder and director of Academy of Cannabis Science, and we're very pleased to have you on here today for our monthly get-together, what we call Saturday Sesh. And we're particularly happy today because we're joined by Harold Hahn, the Chief Science Officer and co-founder of Vertosa in California. Not only is Harold an expert in chemistry, but he goes by the Happy Chemist on YouTube. So we hope this will be, if you're not already familiar with him, this would be a great introduction to you and to what he's able to bring to the table. And what got me excited initially is getting to know Harold online was how simple he makes really complex subjects. So Harold, welcome to Saturday Sesh. How you doing?
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thank you for the opportunity, everybody.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about you. I just gave you a thumbnail intro there.
Right. So, well, I'm sitting here in Tahoe, bringing my parents for Mother's Day tomorrow. Just a small, quick vacation getaway. Being good. Have been a emulsion chemist my whole training, and it's just very fortunate for me to use my skill set in this crossroad between cannabis and emulsion science. And who can imagine there is a science like that, crossroad like this, which is needed for the industry. And I'm happy to share some of my learnings with everybody. I'm happy to be here.
No, we're so happy to have you. So before we get into specifically what you do, you mentioned family. Can you mind telling us a little bit about what messaging did you grow up with regarding cannabis? A lot of people didn't foresee themselves in the role that they're playing in the industry. So I was going to ask you the same thing. Did you expect you were ever going to be doing this?
No, not at all. Uh, I grew up in China when it was my teenager years. I came to the States many years ago. So when I grew up in China, cannabis is a taboo there, and you don't mention it, you don't broadcast it, you don't even know it. It's a big no-no. Well, after I came here for my studies, throughout the schools, I didn't have a chance to experience cannabis, and until a rare your opportunity when I was working for my last employer, I experienced the magic of cannabis. And then talk about my parents. When I decided to come into the industry, I visit them, and we were chatting, and I said, hey, I'm gonna quit my job and found another company. And I told them it's about cannabis, dama. And my dad, instead of being shocked or being wondering what is this, why you do this, my dad asked me, are you the best person to do this? I think about it. I think, I love the plant. I'm an emulsion chemist. I may be the best person to do this. And my mom asked me, are you having fun every day doing this? I think yes. So they said, then you should be doing it.
Wow, what a nice story, and what informed and progressive parents to ask
Thank
you
you.
those questions. Those are awesome questions. Um, are you happy every day?
Yeah, I am. Well, my parents are very supportive to my career, and they became from not non-user, and they're getting older,
Mhm.
sleep issues, pain issues, and they become power user. But now my dad knows if you want to jack up your heart rate, you put some THC, CBD will lower your heart rate, and what kind of ratio is good for sleep or pain. He triumphs himself and tell me, hey, if you put on your tongue, it's faster. So tell me all those tricks using our ingredients. So it's very fun.
That's awesome. And it's funny that you say that about growing up in China and you just don't mention this because of course China's history of hemp production is legendary and goes back centuries. And as we know, some of the oldest cannabis use was in China. And so hopefully, it just takes time for different areas. I'm from the South, and it's going to take a while for them to come around too. But you're going to have a big head start on your original countrymen.
Oh well, that's one of my goal is I see Chinese people, the whole Asian population, they're very stressed daily, right? Working beats, a lot of pressure on the shoulder, frankly, they do need some cannabis
Hmm.
for their everyday life. So yeah,
No, it's great. Let me you mentioned about being an emulsion specialist. Can you tell us what that is for people who aren't familiar?
right. So emulsion defines a system that you have two phases. One is the two phases not miscible, not dissolving each other, like water, oil, right? So usually oil flow on top of water, but with the help of emulsifier and the help of energy input, the physics and chemistry, and if you combine it well, the oil will be stabilizing within the water. So when you dilute this system into a beverage or gummy, it's going to be homogeneous. And that's how you can introduce cannabinoids as a fat soluble compounds into a beverage.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned gummies because I think it's easier for people to see it when it comes to a beverage, right? We've bought salad dressing and know that you got to shake the bottle first,
Right.
kind of to get that temporary emulsion or at least mixing. And but gummies, I guess it plays out because when you're making those gummies, the first gummy made versus the last gummy made need to be consistent in the amount of cannabinoids in them or ingredients in them, right?
Right. So we start with our emotion in the beverage, but we find out, the emotion can be benefiting other form factors such as edibles of gummy. Um, when you make gummy, you introduce water, right, to dissolve the sugar and pectin. So as long as you have a step to introduce water, we can introduce emotion into the system. Um, so when we look back into gummy manufacture process using distillate or isolate, it's very hard, even though they use high heat or rigorous stirring to make sure
Mhm.
distillate dissolves or distributes evenly into the pot. But it's very hard to eliminate any hotspot. There's going to be small hotspot of oil droplets, right? So
Mhm.
that what the cause is you have a zigzag of potency. If you test individual gummy, it's a zigzag. But
Hmm.
when we replace the distillate method using a liquid emulsion, and the infusion step is very, very simple. It's adding water base into water base. It kind of dissolves unnaturally. And then by, not high heat, just mild agitation, the potency line is going to be a very smooth line, not a zigzag anymore. So that, builds trust to the consumer. That's where people may say, hey, I eat a gummy today, the same batch. Next day, I feel a little less, a little more because of the distillate. It's not distributing evenly. But emulsion gummy is going to be more even.
Interesting. And then, based on your experience, how many people are using technology like yours in their product versus the people who aren't? Is it a minority of products who actually realize that they need to involve chemistry to make sure that they have a consistent product?
Right. So we are fortunate to deal with a lot of clients so far. We have two big categories of clients, beverage or edibles. So for beverage, this is where we started. When we started 4 years ago at Vertosa, um, there's nearly not a beverage industry yet, infused beverage industry. It's very small, and because people deal with issues like potency loss, not tasting well, not stable. And then so we focus on beverage. So I think currently Vertosa is infusing 80, 90% of the beverage market in California. For the gummy side, it's interesting because people already knew how to make gummy prior to us using distillate, and it works. It's just a little slower and has some issues, but it worked. So when we come in with this new technology, I think a couple of brands already see the potential and they already converted uh, their manufacturing to us. Other brands, because the historical changing one ingredient is going to be changing SOP, the training, the whole flow of their business, right? The marketing. So for some, historical brands, there are some resistance inside, but when we put out the more products for consumer to try the difference, I think um, we believe there's going to be only fast acting edibles moving forward.
Fast acting edibles. Talk to us a little bit about that because I saw in watching one of your videos, um, you talked about sometimes Vertosa products are bioavailable at a different rate than those that aren't.
Right. Uh, we often hear our industry or technology companies claim, hey, we have a small droplet size, fast acting product or technology. I think I need to say that this first. Not always fast acting is enjoyable, right?
Mhm.
The goal is to be enjoyable. You love that experience. You want to come back again. It's not like I get you within 1 minute. You feel it and super high, right? So that could be uncomfortable in some cases. So I want to distinguish fast acting from being comfortable, and that is being comfortable is our goal. So to fulfill that goal, you want the consumer to eat the gummy and feel the gummy quick enough so they don't overdose. That is the goal, right? They can meter themselves. So by doing this, I think our current gummy formula will allow people to feel the onset and in about 5 to 10 minutes from the gummy. Uh, of course, this will depending on how much food you have in the stomach, and we have realized how big a role food plays in the bioavailability and onset. If you don't have any food, it's going to be very quick onset. Well, if you eat a gummy after a big meal, the onset will be much slower.
So a 10-minute onset is pretty amazing. Anybody who's familiar with the edibles and how they typically work. So have you had to help or have products had to reset that expectation for
Uh,
consumers so that people know, hey, because sometimes people might say, well, I'll eat a gummy now because I'll be home within 15 minutes, so I'll be fine to drive, right? It's not advisable, but people do. Have you had to
yes,
re-educate people?
a lot of re-education. So I have an example to just for this. So we have a partner in Texas, and they are called TOCC. So they are the only medical allowed licensed company in Texas. And in Texas, as you know, only severe medical patients have access to cannabis. And they were making distillate gummy or distillate infused lozenges. And when we bring our technology to Texas, and a small trial first, right? Giving to patients, and the effect, it was amazing from the patients because patients really need that fast acting because the symptom come on and they need to have it and reduce the symptom and go on with their life, right? So, and having this, patients can meter dose themselves, right? Can control how much they eat. So the feedback, and the growth of the market for the patients, I think, um, quadrupled, in a very short time. And more patients and doctors are recommending cannabinoids. So, and we see their business has grown, 4 times. The people and the space they built to fulfill the demand in the Texas market. So, I think on the medical side, yes, patients will need a quick relief, right, from cannabinoids. Also on the recreational side, um, you know, the the education, like what you said. I have a lot of friends already are familiar with the 1 hour onset story, and that's why they eat around 9 p.m. right, to be able to sleep at 10 p.m. because they
Right.
they already they already count that time lag. So having this re-education, but I think consumer will be very willing to accept this change, and because feeling faster is kind of a natural thing, for their intellect to be expecting this to be happening.
Interesting. We saw some of the early products here in Washington State. They were just some natural fails, right? We had some carbonated beverages that were exploding in storage because they underestimated, I guess, the power of the carbonation in the product, or put. You would probably know better than I. We had some other products that you would just see the oil just floating right on top of the beverage. And so when you go to, if you're drinking out of the bottle, even if it's a measured bottle and you're only going to drink a certain portion, those first couple of gulps, it's possible that you consume everything that's in the bottle that's an active ingredient. Um, did you all have some similar fails in California? Is that what it takes sometimes for people to knock on your door? Or are people already kind of familiar and they go, I don't know what I don't know, I need to trust Vertosa or a company like yours?
Right, right. So what you have described, the big O-rings floating to the top, or sedimentations on the bottom, or
Mm-hmm.
layer separation, those are common issues that happened in California maybe 4 or 5 years ago. This is where the drive for funding a company like Vertosa to help brands, because to solve those issues, you really need dedicated research, compatibility study, trials, to understand why this is happening and how to avoid it. And frankly, our brand partners doesn't have the bandwidth to hire a PhD scientist to look into the matter. So we think that's the opportunity for us to get to do the science for them. So what we have done so far, it's I think Vertosa come in. Our promise to the industry is, I think, is first palatable, is good flavor. Secondly, it's going to be stable. The product, no O-ring, no sedimentation, is potency is evenly distributed in the product, and then it's going to be repeatable, right? Because you want to every single batch is the same quality from the first batch, and then is scalable. When you scale this business, more demand, you have to be able to make it in a large scale. So when you make those four promises to our partners, I think that's what a growing industry will look for.
Man, it's exciting because you're really, you're taking things to the next level, and it's so exciting to see us as an industry evolve in this way. Um, as we talk about educating consumers, one of those words that's sometimes a buzzword and I think often misunderstood is nanotechnology when it comes to cannabinoids. And I've heard some people say, well, the molecule is only going to be as small as the molecule is going to be, and you can't. It's kind of a bogus claim that nanotechnology is going to help. And then there's some other beautifully written marketing flyers that say, hey, no, because of technology, our product is absorbed more quickly, is a higher rate of absorption, etc. Could you give us, and I know it's a complex topic, but could you, for those of us uninitiated into nanotechnology, could you help us? What do consumers need to know when it comes to that word and that technology?
Right. So it is really a complex matter because our body is complex and we are injecting a new ingredients to our body. And how our body deal with these ingredients, I think this is the topic here. So I think I can cut into two parts. One part is, what does nano emulsion do? So nano emulsion, you can see that as a bus, right? And the THC, CBD, CBG is the passenger in the bus. And the bus's goal is to deliver the passenger into your blood. That's it. So our goal is to deliver into your blood. And how can THC get into your blood? That's called PK, pharmacokinetic, right? That is where the little droplets get absorbed in your small intestines. Through the small intestines, either go through liver, and liver go to blood, or go to lymphatic system to the blood. Anyway, so our goal is to quickly get the cannabinoids into your blood. And our goal, Vertosa's goal is done. We delivered. We're done with the delivery. And then it is the molecules goal to flow in your blood, right? Flow through all your body. So when THC flow through your blood into your brain, there is a blood-brain barrier, right? So this people, we often hear, hey, our cannabinoids, our nano emulsion help cross blood-brain barrier.
Right.
This is a wrong statement because emulsion doesn't help it. Emulsion's goal is only to deliver into the blood. And when THC flow by itself, it will enter the barrier by itself. So what molecule will enter, what molecule will not enter is already predetermined by the blood-brain barrier. So this is where only certain compounds can enter your brain because your brain want to protect itself. So it has a very strict mechanism to allow which one to come in. And if the wrong one come in, there's a mechanism to wash it out again. So THC is that magic molecule. It will come in, not only come in and bind with CB1, that's where you feel high. right? So so to summarize, nanotechnology, nano emulsion, the goal is to deliver active into your blood quickly, so you can feel it quickly, and then you will, depending on the molecule's its own structure, to see, okay, does it go into brain? Does it bind with CB1? Does it bind with CB2?
Interesting. Okay, and I'm sure you could talk on that subject for a long time, but I think it's important because I think some people can just look at the term and be a little confounded or not sure if it's a marketing message or a legitimate scientific claim, right? So how about water solubles, water soluble cannabinoids? Is that something I think often the industry overlooks maybe the value of some water soluble cannabinoids and other compounds. Is that something you all are actively working to maintain, or is it a little early for those discussions?
Right. So there is also a scientific term, soluble versus dispersible. So
Okay.
soluble means sugar or salt, right? They are, the single molecule is flowing inside water. That's called soluble, right? But THC, at least through our technology, we're not making THC water soluble. Otherwise, we're going to change the structure of the THC,
Right.
make it
Okay.
water, like water. But what we do is we combine a lot of THC into a droplets, and we protect the droplets through a layer of emulsifier and make this whole thing water compatible. So the THC in our technology is not water soluble in water, but is water compatible in water because it's billions of smaller droplets flowing in water, and each droplet contain maybe hundreds, thousands of THC inside. So that's the term of water soluble. So water soluble get used more frequently because it makes sense to people, good to consumer. But scientifically, at least for emulsion, it should be called water dispersible. But either way, I think it opens the imagination for our clients to because if we don't make it water dispersible or soluble, you can't put cannabinoids into a water containing product. It's going to separate. And if you make that transition, now you open a big opportunity for, there's the saying, can we put cannabinoids in there? Yes, you can.
Right.
Well, so beverages, gummies, even hot sauce, srirachas, condiments, personal lubricants, cosmetics, gel, capsules, as long as it contains water, it can go in there.
And so that could have a profound effect on the injectability of cannabinoids in time, I imagine, right? If somebody could run an IV bag in time and had cannabinoids, that's not something that's currently being done, but I know I've talked to physicians who look forward to the time where that could be a possibility.
Yeah, IV injection of cannabinoids, we haven't go that far yet. That sounds very medical, but that may require a safety consideration of if you inject emulsion or whatever other ingredients in your blood, how does that affect your overall absorption? But that's we haven't thought that far yet.
Right. And yes, it would be absolutely a medical, not something anybody's doing, we hope, for recreational or fun purposes. But can you talk to us a little bit about shelf life? I know there's a whole lot of folklore out there about the degradation of cannabinoids over time and that sort of thing. What's something that you like consumers to understand about shelf life or cannabinoid stability?
Right. Cannabinoids as active compounds can be is finicky. By meaning, I mean it's likely going to lose potency over time because due to a couple of issues. One is chemically oxidation, physically stuck to the packaging. So chemically oxidation, if you have a can of beverage, there's a dissolved oxygen level in there, right? So for example, beer, they reduce the oxygen level as low as possible so the beer doesn't change flavor over time. So because our industry is emerging, we don't have the full scale production capability of the beer production scale, right? So we may introduce oxygen into each bottle, and over time there is a chance for cannabinoids to be oxidized. But when we realize that's an issue, Vertosa start working immediately to solve this. So there are water-soluble antioxidants, oil-soluble antioxidants, and there are ways to advocate for our co-packing partner. Hey, you need to measure and reduce DO level in the packaging. So different things are happening to solve that chemical oxidation. For physical loss, we have heard this can liner issue. In the aluminum can, you have a liner which is made by polymer. It's hydrophobic, and as you know, the emulsion droplets containing THC is also hydrophobic, right? So over time, those droplets can stuck onto the liner if the droplet is not protected well. So over time, you may be losing potency from the liquids because droplets stuck to the liner. So to ensure trust through consumers, you have to make sure the consumer pick up a can. You should have 10 milligram all the time, right? In different regions, whenever they pick up the can. So you have to keep reducing chemical oxidation and physical loss, both.
Gosh, and I knew a little bit of that from watching some of your videos online where you said, well, it was a question similar to that, and you said, well, it depends. Is it stored in glass? Is it stored in a particular type of plastic or aluminum can? For people who are kitchen chemists, there are patients like myself who are making oils at home. If now I store my oils in a glass jar in the fridge, as a chemist, would you advise me to store them in a different way?
Yeah, in the fridge is the best. So oxidation will be accelerated by lights and temperature. So in the fridge, you keep both a minimum. So yes, that's the best option.
Okay. Also in glass, would you confer that?
Yes,
Okay.
glass is the best.
Good deal. Well, let's turn to, we got a lot of smart people on the line with us today. I'm sure a lot of curious people. So let's see what questions. Goose has got a question. He was ready. What you got, Goose? You might be.
Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
On our last topic about degradation, whether it be from sunlight or temperature changes, and at the recreational level, as we're talking as bud tenders, and trying to discuss not having. We rotate our display cases once a week, so we don't have things out in more closer to daylight and all that. So my question has always been, have there been studies on how quickly we start dropping from a lab tested 23% down to a reality of 19%? And that being said, as a bud tender, I don't care about numbers on flower. I don't even look at them. We end up being that by using so much, we can basically, I think, tell by what our terpenes are going to drive us on what we smoke. And the more, the more, oh God, not terpenes, but the more frost we have in a product is kind of going to tell us that kind of action that it's going to give us. So looking at numbers, I read the numbers on the bottles, and customers that come in looking for numbers, I discuss things in other than a numbers term.
Right. You're addressing flowers mainly.
Flowers specifically, yes, but the degradation of other things too. It's like we keep our high dollar concentrates in a cooler at a cool temperature. Others we don't. So it's like we're always wondering, like, how long at the shop are we going to have flour before it starts degrading on a shelf?
Right. A flour I have not too much knowledge upon, but I have read a paper. If you have a THC distillate dissolving MCT oil, right, and if you place this oil on the plate and just put it into room temperature, just close to the air, and I think THC lose 20% a year in that oil form. So not a lot, but it's a decent amount in a year. But for flowers, flowers is usually THCA, right? So THCA shouldn't be oxidized, because I was just reading another book talk about, we found the resin residue from the ancient sites, and they test THCA from that unburned little buds, and for thousands of years THCA is still trace amount detectable. So I think THCA may not be easy to be oxidized. I may be wrong, but
Interesting. Yeah, and that's the stuff that we don't know yet that's exciting, I think. Um, how about are there certain terpenes that make your life as a chemist complicated? Because I know those are a whole nother set of chemicals that you're dealing with on the daily. Is, for instance, limonene more reactive with can liners, or are there considerations with high levels of terpenes that make life complicated for you?
right. We got constantly requests by our clients to adding terpenes in their products, either for flavor purpose or functional purpose. Terpene is very complex. When we start to help our clients formulating terpene into the emulsion, we realize currently we don't even have a across the board accurate, consistent terpene detection method in the lab. Each lab will have their own terpene detection method. The standards for terpene is all over the place. So let's say if you cannot detect accurately, you won't be able to know how to dose it and how to control it. So we work, the first step is we work with 3 labs, 2 in the States, 1 in Canada, and to say, what is the best method to detect terpene reliably from the oil to emulsion to infused products, right? So I think we are having some exciting results from there. Now let's say we have a method to detect it from oil to emulsion to products. Then the tricky one is how much you need. I have met clients adding a little terpene for flavor purpose. That's okay, but it may not, that amount may not be sufficient to give you a headspace change, right? A change of the experience. We have some other clients who add a sufficient amount of terpenes in the beverage, but then it becomes bitter, right? Yes, that sufficient amount will give you a different experience, but will consumer, sacrificing drinking this bitter, product. So, and then it will be the how terpene work in sync with cannabinoids. That's Dr. Ethan Russo's theory of entourage effect, understanding how to combine, what to combine, how much to combine, and it's gonna be so terpene is very interesting, but it would deserve even longer time for the whole industry to dig in.
And am I correct? Those are even more volatile compounds, so they're trickier probably to work with, aren't they?
Exactly. I haven't talked about processing. So when you process terpene, you have to keep in mind the boiling point. Not only boiling point, some terpene is just not stable. By even a little higher temperature, it may get changed or degraded. So how you make that terpene into emulsion and how you put that terpene into emulsion into product. For example, as we know, candies or gummies would require high temperature process. What does that do to terpene? Are you gonna just kill all the terpene already, right? So, or are they gonna transfer the terpene into their chemical sister brothers? So you're not eating the terpene anymore. So yes, processing is gonna be another big thing to consider.
So it's exciting just to see the changes we've seen in the last 5 years in this industry. So yeah, I'm looking forward to another 5 and seeing the different products we're going to have, the quality of products, etc. But like you brought up before a couple times, is consistency in product, which is so huge to be able to rely on. And of course, that's what the pharmaceutical industry points to cannabis and says, well, you guys in that industry over there can't promise me consistency of dosing, and it's a legit concern. What other questions do you all have? I know you got more questions. I certainly do. Anybody? Well, how about Harold? How about home chemists? So, like I mentioned, a lot of people make their own butters or make their own oils or their own edibles. You know, as a second step. Um, are there some tools that you use in your? I think you said you started in your kitchen.
Yeah.
So, for those of us who don't have fancy equipment, who don't have a chemistry background, what are some of the tools we can use in our kitchens that help us um, be more skilled when it comes to emulsions?
Right. Um, Let me think. I think, you know, people can always leverage emulsion for higher bioavailability at home, even for medical purpose. So when you have high concentration of oil, the only simple ingredients you need is some oil, some MCT oil, coconut oil, or liquid coconut oil, and dissolve this thing together, having one oil phase. And then you can use either sunflower licensing, that's very common, and it works pretty great for this mixture. Or you can just go to Amazon, buy some polysorbate 60, 80, 20. As long as there are edible version, polysorbate, they all work. So if you have 1-to-1 ratio of CBD to coconut oil, you can put in 1 to 2 portion of the solid polysorbate or sunflower licensing. And then when you mix them together, you add some water in there, right? And so CBD, MCT, polysorbate, water. And you add them, you stir them well. And then the last step is to stabilize them. So usually a high shear kitchen mix, you know, handheld version.
Right.
You mix the eggs or other stuff, you can put it in there, mix for 5 minutes. I cannot guarantee it will be stable for 2 months, but for, you know, a couple of days, you can dose that into your, you know, cakes or baking or coffee. So at least it can get the job done.
So when it comes to a product like lecithin, can you help us understand on a most basic level, what's that action that's happening that's helping to distribute that oil in a way that makes it effective?
Yeah, so licensing or polysorbate, we call it emulsifier, right? So the whole goal is to, so the emulsifier is, like I said, if this is the droplets containing MCT and your CBD, emulsifier is on the edge of the droplets.
Mm-hmm.
So you are essentially making the emulsifier find the droplets and stuck to the boundary of the two phases. And by doing this, you need to, that's where the handheld high shear mixer is coming in, because you need to break up the surface and generate new surface so that emulsifier can stuck onto the new surface.
Gotcha.
Right? The more you break it up, the more smaller droplets you will produce, and the more, you know, emulsifier will bind to the droplets.
Okay, so not exactly, but kind of like getting the lumps out of our pancake mix, right? You got to break those lumps down and distribute them, right?
Exactly.
Okay, very good. And I know that's not a scientifically accurate,
but you know, in the self kitchen, you know, that can greatly increase the how much you get out of the cannabinoids.
cool. Kenji, what you got? And then we'll go to Goose. Kenji, we can't hear you, man.
My headphones might not be working. Sorry about that. Can
There
you
we
hear
go.
me now?
Now we got you. Yeah. Hold on, you went to mute again.
Oh, there we go. Can you hear me now? Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
No
So you
worries.
mentioned working primarily in the product categories of like gummies and drinks, which is I found really fascinating. One thing that I noticed working in the industry over the years was there's kind of been a lack of interest in savory or kind of more expanded kind of culinary elements or experiences. And I think a lot of time, you know, a lot of it had to do with exactly what you're describing is the delivery methods and the predictability and And emulsion plays a huge role in so many different elements of cooking in general. Do you foresee, or are you working with clients that are interested in that kind of expansion, or is that kind of a little bit more on the ways out?
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, and a very promising sector for our industry. We have seen private chef cooking cannabis dinner, right, for a party or family. I feel that could be a very interesting way to remove stigma for people, right? And so we actually talked to, I think, 3 chefs in the States already, and they were just doing that. I think their previous difficulty is to how to put cannabinoids onto a food product. And if they only use oil, they are super limited, right? And it's very hard to dose. You're not even sure if the clients are eating all the oil, right?
Mhm.
And how long the oil will be at the onset. Are they going to overdose? And how much you put in there. It's all by eye, right? So when we introduce our meter dosed, it's all potency is accurate. You know exactly how they get. Or even from the drink, a cocktail, you can get it, right? Or anything on a salad dressing, anything. It's very precise. And some chefs even are creative to create this dinner, this 9-course dinner by experience. So they get you slightly high first and get you into a zoom of, zoom in and get you, into a relaxing, so different cannabinoids can come into play. So you have a full journey of this, how this whole long dinner feels like. So I feel a lot needs to be digging from here. We're just, I encourage a lot more chefs to come in.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Harold, a lot of gummies, like we've talked about, are distillate based. I assume that's just because of a price point. It helps keep the ingredient cost down for manufacturers. But is there a world where you imagine more and more products are willing to consider adding full spectrum, like a FICO oil instead of a distillate product to their edibles to give people the full benefit of the plant rather than just one cannabinoid?
Yes, I think a couple of brands already are realizing, and it's a demand from the consumer too, right?
Mhm.
They want to feel different, and so yes, we have helped some clients processing their full spectrum oil into the emulsion and into the gummy. So one thing we need to be careful of is when you smoke a joint of the terpenes and all the other benefit stuff, you get into the blood quickly, right? But when you eat it in the beverage or edible, let's say you have 5 compounds of interest, right? Those 5 compounds, because you're eating it, it may go through your liver. So your liver, for example, will metabolize THC into 11-hydroxyl, THC carboxylic, and CBD into other compounds. And who knows all those terpenes, how many compounds your liver will metabolize into. So when we talk about infusing rare cannabinoids or terpenes into edible, we need to consider how much of those can go through the liver, and in the end, what you get in the blood. It could be 15 compounds out of the liver, right? And then they are a cocktail of 15 compounds that give the effect of how you feel. So there is a discussion that Vertosa is looking into right now, is how we're gonna, if those 5 compounds is you intend to have those 5 compounds working together, how we can deliver those 5 through an edible and bypassing liver, so that it will be 5 flowing in the blood, not the 15.
Interesting. Yeah, so you all have a lot to discover too as you push the industry, and it really seems like you are pushing the industry to a new kind of level of awareness, and I appreciate that. I imagine it takes. You find yourself having to do a lot of consumer education to help them appreciate what you're even doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's I feel like even we look back 3 years ago of what we had in Vertosa, it's very, very immature, right? But 3 years we have grown so much. And I think that's the same happening. In 3 years, when we look back to today, we could be teenagers now, right? So
Yeah, right.
it grows so fast. And I feel like I was joking with a friend of mine, say, right now, we are in the, if we are internet industry, we are only sending emails right now. And
Right.
we haven't even have YouTubes or whatever, for the internet, the industry to grow up, right? To have all those offerings. So yeah, a lot to be learned.
And that, yeah, that's a good analogy. We don't know what we don't know, right? We know it's a relatively safe plant, but we also know we're doing things with it that haven't been done before, probably in history. So it's a great question. Goose, did you have another question?
Yeah, I have a question, and it's kind of based on dosing. And if anybody in your area is doing any research on, various amounts of cannabinoid dosing for various amounts of situations for different physiologies and different body sizes and leannesses and all this. So when I'm at the counter with someone trying to get them their proper wellness products, I feel like I'm going through calculus right there, getting information as quickly as I can. And I've gotten to the point where I've finally figured out some things like a lot of people, when they're doing their edibles, they go from 1 unit, a 10 milligram unit, and then they go into 2 units as their next unit. Well, that's like if I was drinking 4 beers a day and that was my dose, and then all of a sudden the next time I want to increase my dose, I go to 8 beers. So I think there's educational stuff out there. I talk to my customers sometimes in quartering up their dosings so they can microdose on their own. So they're not just getting, they're not going up on waves, up and down, so they can kind of get steady with their day. I talk to people about, the people that smoke and use their wellness products at the same time with whatever cannabinoid they're leaning towards. I talk to them about, finding a wonderful smoke that's your terpene that gets you the most joy. Take your edible, take your smoke will get you to your happy place. By the time it comes down, everything else should be carrying you. And that's where somehow there's got to be a dosing to figure that out a little bit close, get it somewhat close to the pin. Thank you.
Well, yes, Goose, you're touched a very complex issue, right? So it can, in my eye, when I hear about your statement, I think about delivery method. Smoking, edible, they're different. People metabolism, right? People, our genetic difference. Body weight, right? If you have high BMI, more fat, the distribution of cannabinoids is different from a skinny person, right? And then the symptom, right? For anxiety or different pain, it could require different doses. So if you combine, those are just 4 we just mentioned. If you combine them, it's nearly impossible to figure out how much you should be dosed, right? So I feel, of course, more study, more researcher needs to come in to, and then it's a process for the patients to build a relation with the plant, right? Don't be rushed to find your optimum dose, and don't give up, right? So try a little different things. So I appreciate you, Goose, to be the front fighter to educate, everybody to, and I know it's very, really, really challenging.
And Goose, likewise, thanks for, I know both you and Kenji recommend dosing journals to people, to help people be very present and aware with how they're using the plant, and not just like, oh, I think I took this, or I think that was my reaction last time. And like Harold said, developing your relationship with the plant helps, helps with your awareness. Vic, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did have a question. Well, I had a comment first. I remember when they were first making the extractions of CBD oil about 12 years ago, that was just horrible. It was just, people didn't know what they were doing. It was also new into the market. But then 10 years later, you know, you see it now, and with the new technology and stuff, the extractions are amazing. You know, if you find that right oil that's got that right, that pure extraction from the hemp plant, you know, to create that nice look and that taste, and then for it to activate and really work into your system, you know. And I've had good experiences, like I've had bad experiences in that since I was diagnosed back in 2009 with leukemia. I was desperate to find whatever I could get into my bloodstream, you know. So now these years have gone by, and I've seen them. I've also done the edibles, the gummies, and also the drinks, you know. And it's hard to find, you know, that drink that has that consistency, you know. And then so having you here, Harold, has been a real eye opener to a lot of stuff that I didn't even know, even, you know, we had to take into account. So so my question to you is, how can somebody who wants to go into that industry utilize your services to make sure that they're off to the right start in what they're doing? Because I got a project going on in Mexico, and I know that they want to have the best of everything, you know. So I want to know how these people can contact you, or how we can work together to make sure that Mexico, when it becomes legal, they're, you know, that they're getting, you know, that consistency. Because right now, from what I'm seeing on the social platforms, it's just a bunch of garbage, you know, and people are just telling each other off, and instead of like really utilizing this for an opportunity to make it like not so competitive that we have this better product or that better product, you know. I mean, we should be working together to make sure that these products are getting put in the right hands of the people who need it for the right reasons, you know. So I don't know if I make myself sense, but how can we get a hold of you, you know, in the private sector to do some kind of consulting, you know, perhaps?
Right. That's a good question, Victor. We always believe it's a take village for the industry to grow and get better. And we also believe people need to focus, right? We have seen vertical integrators, big company, 300 people, and they wanted everything, right? They want to hire a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. And in the end, they kind of suffer from not being good at anything because it's spread too thin. So we realized that 4 years ago. So when we found Vertosa, we say, we only do this vertical, you know, we only do this. And we want to be the best of this and just focus. And, you know, our efforts have been seen by our partners. And instead of they hiring another 2 PhDs or 2 chemists to figure this out, you know, we have a better, you know, a cheaper, you know, more reliable, and we are here to solve their issues. And I think the same for software growing, you know, you don't need to do everything, you know. So I think leveraging, because the industry didn't have a lot of trust to each other before. So that's why I push people to do everything in-house. But when more companies like Vertosa or softwares or, you know, backend, you know, front end, those services come up and being more professional and build a trust, I think more big players are willing to license or let other company help them with one sector. So Victor, for our Mexican, you know, operation, you know, feel free to reach out to me. You know, let's see how we can help. You can reach out to me at Vertosa, Harold@vertosa.com.
There we go. And Harold, how about, although we're a pretty Washington-centric audience right now who are currently live, how about when we get to travel or we have friends in California and they want to make sure to buy products that you've had hands on? Is there a way to know? Is there something on the package typically that says, hey, developed in partnership with Vertosa, or is that something we need to go to the website and find out?
Yes, let me send a link right here. So we don't request our partners to put a infused by Vertosa on their can liner, on the can, but you know, some clients would be willing to do that. We're not saying no to that. So it's like Intel Inside. The holy goal is to build trust to the consumer. You know, if consumer realize infused by Vertosa give them a consistent, you know, experience, they may keep looking for that. So here in the link, we have a couple of examples. but we have more products in California that we are infusing. So if you go to a dispensary in California and open the fridge and see the infused beverage, and pick one up and look for, on the bottom is to see if you can see a small font of infused of Vertosa. Yeah, so that's where I would suggest we look into, and also I think we are going into Oregon and Washington this year. So, and we're going to bring our technology there too.
Awesome. Well, you all spread the word, and Harold will be welcoming to you, and look forward to having both you and your technology in our products here soon. I just want to thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I know these are complex topics, and at no point have you said, "Oh, I don't have time to discuss that." You've been able to whittle it down and make it make sense for folks. And for those of you who want more, there's the link to the Vertosa YouTube channel. I'd encourage you to check that out. There's a lot of great content there, and they're in small bite-sized bits. So that's a great place to go. And just, hey, thanks again. We really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it too. Thank you.
And everybody, we want to remind you that next month we're going to have Russ Hudson here as our guest. Russ is the author of the Big Book of Terps. He's out of Spain originally, and has developed, boy, it's a thick volume all about terpenes. So if you want to really get nerdy about terpenes, that's what we're going to be doing. And even before that, on the 24th of this month, just a little bit over 2 weeks out, we're going to have Cannabis Trivia Night. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be at the regular time that we do Tuesday Night Student Lounge. You don't have to be an enrolled student. You can bring friends. So please share the word about that event. You can find that on our Facebook page. And that's going to be Cannabis Trivia Night, May 24th at 6 p.m. What we will do is ask you to add an app called Kahoot. And let me see if I have it right here. Kahoot, what it actually does, it's free, and it turns your phone into one of those tabletop trivia machines, basically. So as we post up the question, you just click which one's appropriate, and it'll give you the points you need, and it'll be a fun competition. Have you done that? Cool.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's really engaging.
It is. Thank you. It's a fun app, and we're going to do that. We're going to have some prizes, so hopefully you all can join us. Bring a friend, and we'll have some friendly competition. So thank you all for being here today. As always, glad to have you part of our Canna fam. Harold, we hope this is just the first of several conversations. I'd love to talk to you about working together with you some more, especially since you're coming to town or coming to the States. So thanks so much.
Stay in touch, everybody. Bye.